Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United face a Cody Gakpo transfer fear that they're going to have to face up and solve quickly if they want to bring him to Manchester United in January. We were speaking about Joao Felix this morning, as you know. What impact has that got on United? Why would they be looking at him? Also want to catch up on a few things I didn't get a chance to talk about this morning because the stream unexpectedly ended. So there's a few things I didn't mention this morning that I want to get into. A midfielder that we've been linked to from Spain, Ronaldo coming back to the Premier League, and also a striker that we may have been looking at before the World Cup, but is definitely not on the agenda now. So lots to get into, and we may well just refresh ourselves about this Joao Felix story, because reading a lot of the comments this morning and interacting with the chat, a lot of people were saying, well, I want Gakpo. Why are we being mentioned with Joao Felix? Unless we're going to get both of them, why are we being linked to that? And the reality is, actually, there is a bit of a fear around Manchester United and Cody Gakpo, and hence this is what we want to talk about on this show. There is a fear from Manchester United, and it's a very well-known fear within the industry. Manchester United were in for Gakpo in August, and everybody knows they were in for him. And that is a worry, because when you show your cards in a game of cards, it makes it very clear what you're trying to do. And people go, ooh, United quite like Gakpo. Ten Hag likes Gakpo. That's interesting. They didn't get him. Let's have a look. In August, United spoke to Gakpo, spoke to PSV, and decided not to do it because Ronaldo stayed. Leeds United and Southampton nearly did a deal, and it was rumoured to be no more than 30 million quid. It was rumoured to be 25 million pounds. So Cody Gakpo was available for about 30 million quid in August. He's now being quoted at 50. His price has gone up in 20 million pounds in 3 months, and there's a lot more interest in him. And this presents a problem to Manchester United, because they know he was available for 30 million in August and they had a cleared run on it. And now they've got a player that is playing tomorrow in a World Cup round of 16. He's already scored 3 goals in 3 games. His price is shot up by nearly 100%. And a lot of other clubs are looking at him. And suddenly, a player that Manchester United, and look, I would put them down as still favourites to sign, they've got a lot of concerns. I mean, do they want to pay the increased price? Are PSV going to kickstart an auction? It's in their interest. And is Gakpo now looking at other options himself? Manchester United are in a position with Cody Gakpo where they would like to get him, but they don't know the feasibility of doing that deal at the moment. And they've sort of left themselves in an uncertain area because of their, I suppose, inability to sign him in August. If they'd signed him in August, we'd have the same player for 30 million quid. Now, 5 months later, which is what January will be, we could be playing double that. And who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? And who knows how far the Netherlands will go? I mean, if Netherlands go semi-final, he keeps scoring, his price keeps going up. That's what happens with the World Cup. So it presents a problem for Manchester United. Does that explain why we're in for Joao Felix? Well, we're in for Joao Felix in the summer. I don't think United are suddenly going, let's go for Joao Felix because we might not get Cody Gakpo. The reality is Joao Felix will cost a lot more money. But it presents an intriguing issue at a time where United cannot afford to get it wrong. I was looking at Vincent's comment in the chat before I went live, and he was saying, we can't afford to get this wrong. We can't wait till the summer. The people are lost up the arse of the World Cup. They're not thinking straight. We look at Manchester United before the World Cup break. We lost to Aston Villa and we got a last-second winner against Fulham. We took 3 points from 6. We could have took 1 from 6 if it wasn't for Garnacho. We're not cruising into the top 4. We're not in the top 4. It's very competitive. We've just lost Ronaldo. We'll be weaker coming back. We have to buy a striker, and it has to hit the club on January the 1st. And I think that's a great point as well. People are like, we're almost expecting United to snooze their way through January like they did with Bruno Fernandes, where all of January we knew we were getting Bruno, but we didn't do it until the end of the month. You know, probably trying to negotiate the price, etc., etc. We can't snooze our way through January. We need that striker coming in on January the 1st. Ronaldo's gone. Whatever you think about Ronaldo, he's gone. Like, we don't have striking options apart from Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford at a push. But we're thin. We're thin up front and we're playing 3 games a week. So we need that striker to come in on January the 1st. We don't need to snooze our way in and go, let's see what's about. You know, it's not Christmas morning. Oh, what's this present? We've got to know what we're getting, and we've got to know it from that very first minute of January the 1st. Our fault for overpaying for the players we got in the summer window. Hope you're well, Mark, says Carl Dixon. Thank you very much for that, Carl. So, yeah, I think it presents a really interesting situation. And, you know, as I say, I mean, I haven't spoken to anybody about the Gakpo deal really in any depth. Joao Felix, I think we know what's going on with that. But the Cody Gakpo thing, I think that in answer to the question as to why is there a little bit of uncertainty about United being able to sign Cody Gakpo, well, I think it's very obvious why. That the market is terrifying for Manchester United because it's everything they don't want it to be under the Glazers. They don't want to overspend. They don't want to be exposed, and they don't want to be in a competition. And unfortunately, the Cody Gakpo situation of August, which was very much in Manchester United's hands, PSV would have happily sold him to us for 30 million quid. He would have happily come to us and Ten Hag wanted him. That situation of August doesn't exist anymore. It's completely obliterated. Man United had power in August. Gakpo wanted to come, PSV wanted to sell, and we were like, should we do it, should we not? Should we do it, should we not? And we decided not to. Just like we decided not to get Enzo Fernandez. Just like we decided not to get Alvarez. Just like we decided not to go for Vardial on Rangnick's insistence. We decided not to go for Gakpo when we had the power. We don't have the power now. PSV have the power. Cody Gakpo has the power. And we're sort of going, do you want to still do that deal? And they're going, well, we're definitely waiting for a few weeks because his price is going up by the day at the moment. And look, I don't know what the situation with Cody Gakpo is, but I do know what the situation with PSV is. They want the best price they can get. And at the moment, it is Christmas time for them. You know, the turkey is getting fat. And every day that the Netherlands stay in that tournament, Cody Gakpo's the goal scorer, every day his price goes up. And look, we've already heard that Barcelona are interested. We've also heard a couple of Premier League clubs are interested as well. They weren't interested in the summer. It was Leeds and Southampton and Manchester United. That was it. Now you've got loads of Champions League clubs interested. And as I said, his price has gone up by 20 million. And this is a concern for Manchester United. They know they could have got him for 30. They're now going to have to pay 50. And they know they could have got him quite easily in August. And now they're probably going to have to compete with other clubs for him. And that price is going up and up and up. And the wages are going up and up and up. So it presents a difficult problem. And also, let's not forget, it presents a difficult problem for a player that is still an Eredivisie player that's never played in the Champions League and has never, I don't think he's played in the Champions League anyway, but he's certainly not played in a top league. There is an element of risk there. So, look, big concerns for Manchester United and what they're going to do. Mark, do you think we will sell in January? You mentioned how Donny will have a crucial few weeks or he gets sold. He's selling an options squad. His weeks is there. Well, I can only go off what Fabrizio said about that because he's pretty well briefed on the Donny van de Beek situation. And he said that I'd keep an eye on Donny van de Beek until the back arse of the January transfer window because anything is possible. But I can't see how we let him go because of what you said. You know, the squad is weak. Do you think fear of overpaying for either Gakpo or Felix could cause the Glazers to either not buy or get a cheaper option? I think that's a great point by Stephen. And Michael McCarthy, thank you very much for your sticker. I think Stephen hits the nail on the head. My big concern here is, and you know, I'd be fuming. And I think we'd all be fuming with the prospect of a new owner coming in very, very soon. You can't treat the January transfer window as a cost-saving exercise. We can't just go, well, Joao Felix would be good, but he's too expensive. Cody Gakpo would be good, but he's too expensive. Let's get Memphis Depay, who's free. There's a reason he's free. We can't be doing a deal like that in January. We can't, because if it goes completely wrong, like Igalo does, you're up a shit creek without a paddle, aren't you? So it's not. It's a problem, and I think that. Realistically, we're not party to what Manchester United are planning, but I will keep saying this. Trust Ten Hag, that's the only path to walk down. Regardless of cost, you've got to walk down that path because in the long term it will work out cheaper. The worst mistakes are the expensive mistakes that you think are cheaper but actually cost you more. And what I mean by that is if you get Cody Gakpo for 50 million quid, that's a player that Ten Hag wants, that he feels he can develop and make United better with. And it will cost you 50 million quid to do it. If you go with Memphis Depay, he will cost you nothing to do it. His wages will still cost you money, but it might well cost you Champions League qualification, which in itself is worth about 50, 60 million quid. So the price, and the Glazers never grasped this, and Ed Woodward never grasped it, and I don't know whether Richard Arnold's ever grasped it, but most importantly, the Glazers never grasped it, is that in football, it's not what you buy, it's the long-term cost of it, and what you miss out on by buying that. And we've made countless transfers that have been, we've overpaid on wages, and that's a very obvious waste of money. But go back to last January transfer window, Ralph Rangnick recommended 2 or 3 options in each position that he wanted, midfield and up front, and he got none of them. And the Glazers probably thought, well, we're saving money for the manager in the summer. So we spent nothing in January. But then we spent £200 million in the summer, and we didn't go into the Champions League, which cost us 60 million as well. So, but maybe if we bought in January, we would have got in the Champions League, got 60 million, and probably not needed to spend 200 million in the summer. So that's football. That's how football works. It's not just what you spend and how you waste it. It's also what you don't spend. And I think United need to be very careful about that, because we're all locked in the World Cup at the moment. We're all in the World Cup bubble. We know that. But we also know from last January transfer window, not spending can cost you a lot more than spending. Arsenal paid that price. Spurs didn't. Spurs went and got Kulusevski and Bentancur on loan, admittedly, but those 2 signings kick-started their season to get top 4. We can't ignore it. We won't ignore it, but it's what we do. We will bring a striker in, but will it be a spent striker or will it be a freebie? And a freebie to me is a massive mistake, because I can't see if I don't know of a striker that's free in January that's going to be as impactful as a Cody Gakpo or even a Joao Felix. Michael McCarthy, thank you very much for the super chat. Welcome to Members Club, Wilhelm. So yeah, look, I think there is a fear from Manchester United in relation to Cody Gakpo, and United need to get out of that mindset. They don't like that. They don't like, look at Sancho. The first summer, we're not going to move on the fee. We waited a year and we didn't really move on the fee. We got him for what we wanted, and it took a year. Lindelof, we wanted him in the January. We didn't want to pay what they did. We got him for what we wanted in the summer. Bruno Fernandes, the same thing. We didn't want to pay what they wanted in the summer, so we went back in the January. We will be stubborn on what we want to pay, and the evidence is there. We can't afford to do that this time. We can't afford to go, well, Gakpo was available for 30 in the summer, so we're not going to pay 50 now. We can't afford to do that. Unfortunately, we are what we are, and I don't know whether we need to play the blame game or not, but the position we were in August was strong. The position we are in now is weak. We can't really go to clubs and play hardball. Everybody knows we need a striker. Everybody knows it, and that's probably going to cost us. The way that we managed the Ronaldo situation, whether it was managed badly or we were unlucky, however you look at it, it's left us very exposed, it's left us very desperate, and we've got to do something about it. Will there be more Christmas jumpers coming in, says Paul. Check the website, United Stand, Shopify. We've got a few designs, links in the description as well. I just want to add about Joao Felix, though. We just had a super chat from Ronald. Mark, we always put ourselves in this position of being overpowered by clubs when it comes to transfers, causing us to spend. United are feet draggers, says Ronald. Well, when you look at it, Ronald, Leicester had us over with Maguire. Crystal Palace had us over with Wan-Bissaka. Sporting Lisbon had us over with Bruno. Dortmund had us over with Sancho. And Ajax had us over with Anthony. So Ajax, Dortmund, Sporting Lisbon, Leicester, Palace, they're not giants of world football, are they? And they've absolutely had us over the last few years. I mean, Maguire was 30 million over. Wan-Bissaka was 20 million over. Bruno was probably about 15 million over. Sancho, well, we lost a year. Whatever you think about his price, we lost a year. And Anthony was about 20, 30 million over as well. So these clubs take the piss. And they're not the biggest clubs in the world, and they do take the piss. But going to Joao Felix, I've seen a few people... in fact, I read an article today, and I can't remember who it was, because I was just reading loads of stuff. So sorry for the not giving the shout-out, although they'll probably... Our negotiators aren't great harsh. They probably wouldn't want a shout-out for this, so they're probably lucky that they're not getting a shout-out. But I read an article this morning, and I can't remember what it was, and they who wrote it, and they basically said that Man United should avoid repeating a mistake with Joao Felix. And the crux of the article was basically saying that signing Joao Felix would be wrong, it would be a mistake, mistakes like this they've made in the past, and they shouldn't do it. And I thought, what a ridiculous article. I mean, opinion, fine, some of you might agree with it, but I've got to give my opinion now. What a ridiculous thing to say that Manchester United should avoid repeats of the past by not going for Joao Felix. How arrogant's that? What if that's the player that Ten Hag wants? We already know that he tried to buy him in August. So who are you to sit there and say United should avoid the mistakes of the past because you think we shouldn't buy Joao Felix? What if that's what the manager wants? Is that not what we're meant to do here? I didn't want Arnautovic because of non-footballing reasons, to be honest with you. But, ultimately the manager has to get who he wants and we have to back that. And I think, what mistake of the past would Joao Felix be anyway? I mean, do these people realise that Joao Felix is 6 months younger than Cody Gakpo? I mean, we spoke about it this morning and it feels like people don't realise that. I think Joao Felix has made some bad career choices. He's obviously gone to Atletico Madrid, which was a big, stupid mistake for an attacking player. But he's younger than Cody Gakpo. And he's potentially better. So, look, I would prefer we went for Gakpo, but I wouldn't be unhappy with Joao Felix if that's the player that Erik Ten Hag wants. Michael McCarthy says, we need a centre-forward striker to hold up and distribute to Marcus, making runs off the wings. Similar to Harry Kane's ability to find Marcus in the World Cup, Gakpo is the man for that. There we go. I just talking about Harry Kane. My hunch. I don't have any information on this, but my hunch is that we will end up buying Harry Kane in the summer. I do think that. But DN says Felix is overrated, so we should all just listen to him. The problem with Felix is the price tag. I don't think he's worth 100 million until we have new owners. Zero Blade, thank you very much. I said this morning. I like what Spoiled Bull ballot paper says. Easy to write rubbish when your neck is on the line. I think we've all got an opinion and we've all got an arsehole. And sometimes the same thing comes out of both. The reality is, if Erik Ten Hag wants Joao Felix, and we know he did in August, who are we to sit there and say it's a mistake? He's done very well in a short period of time with his signings, and he's a developmental coach. And I think, in fairness, some of us forget what we've got because of what we've had. I don't think Mourinho was a development coach, and Ollie wasn't. So we've had 6 years of managers that don't develop players. We've now got a manager that does. And at some point, he is going to pick a Rabiot and everyone's going to go, what? And he's going to polish a turd. Because that's what developmental coaches do. It's not always going to be a shiny Martinez or a Casemiro or an Anthony. At some point, Ten Hag will go for, Sebastian Haller from West Ham to Ajax and turn him into, he will do that. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and say Joao Felix is a mistake when actually Joao Felix would be considered one of the better players in Europe when he's on his day. And if Ten Hag thinks he can polish him into a good player, then I'm going to go with that. Another Liverpool recruiter linked to Man United after Michael Edwards. This bodes perfect with the takeover, says Shahan. But one player I think that we can discount, and I meant to mention this morning, is Jonathan David. Remember, we had Fabrizio on before the World Cup, and he was saying keep an eye on Jonathan David. A good World Cup for him could lead to a January transfer move. Clearly, he didn't have a very good World Cup, and I think we can discount him as a Manchester United option now. I'm not so sure he would have been an option if he'd had a good World Cup, but he is a player that Lille are looking to move on. He is available for about £40 million in January, and maybe if he'd lit the World Cup up, people would have been clamouring for him, but he hasn't. And yeah, I think we can discount that name now. It's a player that's been mentioned a little bit, but I think we can discount Jonathan David. And as I said this morning, I really do think that we are focusing now, as of now, on Joao Felix or Cody Gakpo. We may get neither. I'd like to get both. We'll probably get one, but those two are the clear front runners at the moment. And you know what? We're only one definitive story from a credible outlet to kill either of those transfer deals. We're only Liverpool are going to buy Gakpo away from him not coming to United, and we're only Atletico Madrid are not going to sell him in January for Joao Felix for that to not happen, and then where we are. So yeah, the most important thing is that we get somebody in. Also, just talking about Spain, I don't know whether anybody saw this. I meant to mention it this morning. I did want to get your thoughts on this. So AS are linking us, and I quite like these stories because over the last sort of few days we've had Casido. Obviously Bellingham's always there. A lot of fans like Enzo Fernandez. I was speaking about Declan Rice yesterday. What's his name? Zubamendi from Sociedad has been linked to Manchester United. Which, discuss it. What would you think about Zubamendi coming to Manchester United? 23 years of age. Apparently Barcelona have been looking at him as the heir to Busquets' throne. Very, 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 very good midfielder who can do the defensive work but can also pass as well. And, I think that I don't think people forget, but what's the nationality of Rodri? One of the best holding midfielders in the world, Spanish. So not that there can't be a good holding midfielder who's Spanish, because Busquets has done it very, very well. But my point is, Rodri came from Spain and is one of the best holding midfielders in the world because of what he's done for Manchester City. So I think it's interesting. I mean, that story could be nothing. It could be something. But I think that he's an interesting player. I mean, I'm not going to argue that and say that I've watched loads and loads of him. I've seen little bits, but I like those sort of stories because they're players that you go, well, that's thinking out the box. That's a player I probably don't know loads about. And I do want to see United become that. We've mentioned about the South American markets that other clubs seem to exploit, but we don't. And I want to see us start exploiting the La Liga markets, the French league, the Bundesliga, the Italian league. We know about the Dutch league, South America. We can't just keep spending 50, 60, 70 million, 80 million on English players. We've got to start exploiting the wider markets. And I hope and expect Ten Hag to do that. So look, do I think we're going to bring this lad in? Probably, I don't know, probably not. But the fact that we're starting to get linked with midfielders is a positive thing. And I think that's going to be something that we're looking at in the summer when we do get a new owner. So Viniak's hit the nail on the head as well. Scouting department should improve. And I think Ten Hag will be insistent on that. And one area I really do want us to focus on is the South American market. This is a market that Ajax were very good at and have been very good at. And this is where we need Ten Hag's expertise to start infiltrating the club. It's not about your passport. It's about your talent. And it's about getting the next Jesus, the next Neymar, the next Fabregas. We need to. We did it with Ronaldo, and we haven't really done it for a long time. We need to be getting the next superstars at our club. What we're falling into the trap of is not getting the superstar and then trying to buy them. And Rangnick gave us a really big head start on Enzo Fernandez, and we ignored it. And we can't keep doing that. And I think Ten Hag will be very, very aware of that, because Erling Haaland, we probably should have got him before he went to Dortmund. Enzo Fernandez, we could have got him. So Zubimendi would be about 40 million, says Mario G. I think he's got a release clause of 60 million euros, so you wouldn't be far off. But look, I think we all want to see that. We all want to see better recruitment and better scouting. And I think it's something that Ten Hag will be eager to bring in. But obviously he can't. The interesting thing about Ten Hag is, of course, that he took the job in the middle of May. There was no plan for the summer transfer window. It was very much, he was managing Ajax until the middle of May. And then he came in and bought Martinez and Antony and Casemiro and Eriksen and Malacia with no backlift, like with no research. It was just basically, these are players I like. I can't wait for next summer if we get the new owners with Ten Hag being able to plan for the summer. And people forget that. He has had an amazing summer transfer window, considering there was no research, there was no preparation. He didn't even know he had the Man United job a month before the end of the season. So it's amazing what he achieved with no research and no knowledge of the United squad, because he hadn't trained with it. Imagine what he can do going into next summer, having spent a year with this team, knowing the weaknesses, also a year scouting specifically for Manchester United, because it's very different to be scouting for Ajax than Manchester United. I think if we get the new owners in and the added knowledge that Ten Hag's got, it could be really interesting to see what profile of player we go for next summer, because I think it'll be very different to what we went for last summer. Which leads me just to one of the biggest reasons that the January transfer window is so interesting around what striker we could go for, whether it be Gakpo, Felix or somebody else. Of course, this is all to do with Cristiano Ronaldo leaving. And I don't know whether people saw it. Somebody mentioned it to me this morning, and I was meant to mention it on the show and I forgot, so I'm going to mention it here. Apparently, this Saudi Arabia deal for Cristiano Ronaldo is premature. He doesn't actually want to do that. He wants to go and play at the top level still. He wants to keep scoring Champions League goals. And the word Chelsea has come forward again. Now, I don't know whether he's going to go to Chelsea. I don't think it suits Graham Potter to bring a player of that profile in, because for a manager that's got a lot of work to do, who's punching up from Brighton, is it wise to bring a Cristiano Ronaldo into your club? I would resist that if I was Potter. I really would, because the personality could swallow up that football club and end up with him being sacked. But this is not a Chelsea channel. My point I was asked really was, would you be bothered if Cristiano Ronaldo came back to the Premier League? And the honest answer is no. No, I don't know what anybody else's issue is with it, but I don't really care if he goes to Manchester City now, or which he won't, or Chelsea, or Arsenal, or anything else like that. We forfeited that right. So whether he comes back to the Premier League or not, probably won't come back to the Premier League anyway. But I don't see why United fans would have a problem with it. That was part of the Piers Morgan interview that many of us went through, and the realisation that he needed to go and we needed to part ways, and that had to happen. But part of the whole process of saying he needed to go, for me, was realising that he could come back and play for somebody else. So if he goes to Chelsea and he scores goals, that's a big if. Very big if. But if he does, then, maybe there's been a bit of a mistake at some point from our side. But one, I don't foresee that happening. And two, if it does happen, you can't, it's like getting a divorce and then saying you can't go out with them. What are you doing on a date with them? You get a divorce, you pop into the local shopping centre, you're walking past Nando's and you see your ex with somebody else and you storm in. What do you think's going on? What do you think's going on? Nando's was our thing. What are you smiling for? How long you been here? How many drinks have you had? What are you doing out with them? You can't do that. You can't do that because we've separated from Ronaldo. So for me, if he does go off and come back to the Premier League and score goals, well, yeah, it won't be ideal, but that's the whole point of the severance. Like, we didn't put any terms on it, and I don't think we should have put any terms on it. And I'm not actually that bothered if he comes back to Chelsea and starts scoring goals. Because at the end of the day, he needs to move on and we need to move on. And you're never going to move on if you're jealous and bitter and moaning about it. We've got a different path to go down. And the only conversation I'm really interested in is, are we going to get this Cody Gakpo deal done? Are we going to go for Joao Felix? Because if we don't go for either of those two, I'm really worried about doing something stupid like a free transfer for Memphis or something like that, which, to be honest with you, isn't the right deal to do. And I've got nothing against Memphis Depay, but when you look at Memphis Depay, who is the better player? Joao Felix, Cody Gakpo, Memphis Depay. I think we've got to go for the best we can go. Michael says, can you elaborate on Harry Kane coming in the summer? Well, it's a theory, mate. It's a theory, and I'm happy to share it with you. My theory is that Harry Kane has got 1 year left on his contract in the summer, and that Spurs will let him go. Many people think he'll go abroad to Bayern Munich or somewhere like that. But if Harry Kane stays in the Premier League, he'll break Alan Shearer's goal-scoring record, which is a big thing to have when you retire. So I don't think Harry Kane will want to leave the Premier League. Unless go to Bayern Munich and win the Bundesliga. You're guaranteed that. You're not guaranteed the Champions League. So I think he will want to stay in the Premier League. If he stays at Spurs, he's never going to win anything. If he comes to another Premier League club, like a Man United or a Liverpool or whatever, he could win something. Would Liverpool go for him? No. Would Man City go for him? No. Would Arsenal? He can't go to Arsenal. He can't go to Chelsea. So I think Manchester United, maybe he could go to Newcastle. But how far are Newcastle off winning anything? Maybe they're a while off. So my theory is that 1 year left on his contract, wants to stay in the Premier League and wants to try and win something. Man United have already liked him for a long time. So my theory is that we will sign Harry Kane in the summer, especially with new owners as well. My theory is we'll sign Harry Kane. Now, it could be a complete and utter disaster. It could be really, really successful. Who knows what Ten Hag could do with Harry Kane? I think it's unfair to say, well, look how shit Kane is for England. How's it going to work? But different coach, isn't it? I'd forget what he plays like for England. That basically could put a Middlesbrough top on, because basically that's the level of coaching he's getting. Would I want Harry Kane because he'd be 30 in the summer? I don't think he's the right player to go for, to be honest. And I'd worry about Harry Kane because over his career, he's sort of had peaks and troughs with injuries. And I just think when you hit 30... Ronaldo said it best. He said, a lot of the players today will not be able to play until they're 37 like me because they don't look after themselves and they've been overplayed. And I think that you could buy Harry Kane and it could be Alexis Sanchez all over again, where you buy a good player, but they've had better days. But I just have this hunch United will go for Harry Kane in the summer. Will United play differently depending on whether we sign Gakpo or Felix, or do you just see us playing the same, bringing in whoever slots in easiest? Eos, I still think the attacking line of Manchester United is yet to be defined. And the Harry Kane thing's just a theory. It's just a theory. Don't have nightmares. Keep your light on. The Cody Gakpo and Felix thing. I think their flexibility would be the key, because you can play Gakpo in behind a striker, you can play him off the left, and you can play him as the main man. And of course, he's going to keep developing. With Joao Felix, there's probably more development in Cody Gakpo. I think he could become an out-and-out striker. Joao Felix is never going to be an out-and-out striker. He's more of a false 9. He's more of a 10. He's more of a wider player that can drift wide. I think Joao Felix would be a very interesting player, because I would go, well, Joao Felix can play Bruno's role. He can also play Sancho's role. He's that sort of creative, flair player. He's not an out-and-out goal scorer. So, look, it's up to Ten Hag what he does. If we buy Joao Felix, I'll be very happy. If we buy Cody Gakpo, I'll be very happy. If he buys both of them, I'll be very, very happy. So, I'm quite chilled about it. I'm just happy that we're starting now, in the first week of December, to start moving things forward, because I think the big takeaway is this. We're not far away. Ronaldo is not coming back. We have to get the striker in at the start of January. We can't be going through January with what we've got, because if Martial gets injured, we've only got Rashford, and our front three will be Rashford, Sancho and Anthony, with Elanga as the sub and Garnacho. It's not enough. So whatever we do, we've got to get it done at the start of January, and that's only 4 weeks away. And negotiations take a long time. And both Joao Felix and Gakpo are at the World Cup. So we need to get bloody moving. And that's the positive thing for me. We haven't won anything of relevance in the past 10 years. Why would he come here, says Mr. Armstrong. I think you're talking about Harry Kane. But we have won the Europa League, mate. And we have won the FA Cup. That's more relevant than Spurs' trophy cabinet. Spurs' trophy cabinet is sponsored by Mr. Sheen Polish, because it gets so dusty, it's the only thing that goes in there. So you can say we haven't done anything of relevance, and I agree, it's 5 years without a trophy, but is there a chance that United will win something in the next few years if the path looks good? Yes, it is. Yes, there is. Is there a chance that Spurs are going to win anything in the next 5 years? They might win something before we do, but the reality is I think we might be heading in the right direction. Spurs, to me, look like they've got another manager coming in the next 18 months. I think that Conte relationship is going to fall apart at some point. United might be heading in the right direction. Anyway, look, I've got to go because I've got to do the watch-alongs. We've got Portugal, Delo is playing, and we've got Uruguay, Ghana. So big games going on in the World Cup. I'm live on That's Football, and I'm going to be live there in about 5 minutes' time. So I will see you over there. I will push you over now. Thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe, and I'll see you for the watch-along in about 5 minutes. If you're watching these games this afternoon, we can continue the chat on there.